Welcome again. As I've mentioned, what this platform is about, what I'm going to take you through is just a series of things that I have overcome. I will tell it in detail. I'll be telling my story, but in different chapters. So what I'll be mentioning, the things that come from the top of my head, is what I have overcome, including physical and emotional abuse, divorce, teenage pregnancy, attempted suicide, betrayal, and miscarriage. Those are some of the things that really broke my spirit, and those are the things that pushed me to get to this place, to help women on how I can become a voice to them, how we can share the tools and the strategies, and also involving the grace of God on how to navigate all of that to get to that place of healing. So first, I'm going to take you memory lane, where I grew up, how I grew up. I come from a family with my mom and dad being married, and we lived in a warm home. Basically, what I can remember from my childhood is that it was okay. There's nothing that I recall that I could say was not pleasant. I think my parents did all they could with what they had. So I have very beautiful, lovely memories of childhood. I attended primary school at SHM Primary School, and then I had to go do my high school at Bambane Central. And when I got to high school, that's when life somehow started for me, because then I was entering my teenage years. It was a very exciting journey to be in high school. There were a lot of expectations, a lot of anxieties, not knowing what to expect. But I remember I met a group of friends, and instantly we became friends. And from that year, I learned a lot from those friends in particular, because in my earlier years, I wasn't interested in dating. I didn't know about dating. I was just a normal child, I got to learn about that when I got to high school. So in my first year of high school, I meet a boy. I meet a boy towards the end of the year. I meet a boy, we fall in love. It was very beautiful. And from what I remember, we had a conversation about how we are going to do this dating thing. So I remember telling him that, I'm a very principled someone. So what I'm expecting is that we'll just date, and I am committing to being pure until I am ready. So great, it was beautiful. He actually agreed to that. So we dated for like a long time until we got to form 4, which is grade 7, 8, 9, 10, which is grade 10. And then that's when I think he was making advances, even though they were low key. I wasn't aware, because the entire time I had a feeling that he had proven his love for me, because he was willing to wait, and he waited. So It was just a beautiful love affair, even though we were young, even though we didn't understand what love was. But we I thought it was a healthy relationship. So what happened in Form 4 is that he started doing advances, because what used to happen in the relationship is that we would kiss, but would never actually become intimate. And until up to that point, he made advances. I think I was caught off guard, but still, I didn't resist. Still, I didn't resist. I went on with it. So we were intimate. It was the first time we were intimate, and I lost my virginity. And after that, obviously, I had regrets. And I remember going home after that encounter, because it happened on a Saturday. It was a weekend, and I went home on the Monday. When we met at school, we had a conversation. I was like, I think I made a wrong decision. Can we go back in being the way we were? So he was not taking it. He was like, there's no way, because one, you've already lost your virginity. That's not how it works. So I was confused, but I thought, since he knows better, that's what I thought. Well, maybe it is what it is. So it went on. After that, because we started doing it, I think it was just around December that year in Form 4, and it carried on until the final year of our high school. So after a couple of months, after 6 months or so, in July, I started feeling funny. I started feeling funny. I knew something was up with my body, but I couldn't tell what was it. So I suspected, I was pregnant. So I was reading a lot of stuff concerning symptoms on how you fall pregnant. And then eventually I had a talk with him, and I said, you know what, I think I'm suspecting actually that I'm pregnant. And he was like, no ways. There's no way you can be pregnant. But anyways, let's get a pregnancy test to prove. And the first pregnancy test we took came out negative, because we went to the pharmacy and got those home pregnancy tests. And at that time, they were not as accurate as the ones that we have today. So I think it was early days, so it couldn't detect. But as a week passed, I was still feeling sick, obnoxious, dizzy, very tired, So I was like, no, man, I think that's up with me. Can we take another one? So we took another one. And when we took that test, my fears, came true. Eventually, we got to find out that we were pregnant. That was a defining moment in my life. It changed the entire mood. It changed the entire mood. I was confused. Teenage pregnancy. Here I am. This is me. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't even wrap my head around it, because not in a million times I never imagined myself being in that position. Of course, I don't know what I was thinking, because when you're sleeping, whether with protection or without protection, that is bound to happen, But honestly, I never thought I'd be in that position. So the first thing that frightened me the most was, whew, my parents, in particular my dad. I was like, I can face all other things, but now him, how do I face him? And honestly, I was very disappointed at myself, and I was angry at myself. I was angry at him because I thought he knew everything, because he was 3 years older. So I assumed he knew everything. Obviously, that wasn't the case. So, but what I loved about him is that when we find out that we're pregnant, he was very supportive. He never ran away like most guys would do, or even deny. He stood by me. He supported me. And when we were just figuring out what to do, he was like, we have to face the most difficult times of our life, and just dance with the music. So I guess somehow that did comfort me, send a sense of comfort, that at least he's here. Probably that means we can overcome this. So what happened after? Because when you're a teenager, you don't even know the signs and symptoms. But what was happening to me is that I was sleeping a lot. Every day after school, I would just doze off, and my mom noticed that. And it came to a point where I was then now feeling nauseous all of the time. And I would tell her, I was like, I have this thing that I'm feeling. I think my system is not okay. I need to detox. I need to do this and that, So my mom was noticing all those changes, And then what happened was that after finding out that I was pregnant, obviously I couldn't conjure up enough courage to face her or anybody else in my family. So when the time came, my mom I think she noticed that month, I think it was 2 months past, she noticed that I didn't ask for sanitary pads. And she was like, why is that you didn't ask for sanitary pads this time around? I was silent, I couldn't tell her. But I think she could sense, and she just went on, asked, are you pregnant? I couldn't deny it. I couldn't say yes. I just froze, So that led to us going to the lounge, having a conversation. Yeah, it was terrifying. You can imagine for a 17-year-old, coming to face your parents about that. So yeah, it was the longest conversation. I felt like it went on for hours. Obviously not, but when we had that talk, all I was saying under my breath was like, can it get over? Can it get over? Can it get over? So yeah, obviously she was furious. She was disappointed. She shouted. Yeah, it was just not a pleasant sight. But soon after that, what she said to me was like, your dad cannot know now. So she had a plan that we are going to conceal the pregnancy from him. And I understand her concerns. Because it was my final year of it was my final year of high school. So she wanted me to write the exams And that's what I think. So months went on until I wrote my exams and I finished them. And at that time, I was 7 months pregnant when my mom had to announce the news to my dad. Prior to that, of course, at school, there was a lot happening, in my mind, emotionally, psychologically, because now the other kids would make funny remarks, they were like, you kind of gaining weight, you're glowing, what's up with you, how kids are. Others can be bullies when it comes to that. But fortunately enough, my tummy wasn't showing, even though there were body changes. I remember I had to adjust my skirt and my tunic. I remember that I used to have what they call a pullover every time. When it was hot, cold, it was the same thing, because I needed to hide. I didn't want people to be staring at me, and I needed to disguise that until I wrote my final exams. So the moment of truth, my mom announcing the news to this big guy. My dad is a kind of dad. Well, he was, because he's grown now. He was a guy who's very strict, like extremely strict, and yeah, we feared him a lot at home, in the sense that he carried that kind of authority. I don't know whether it comes with culture or what, but yeah, that thing happens so much in our Black communities. So now my dad gets to find out. When he found out, it was havoc in our home, in our house, because one, he was furious. He was furious to a point where he even somehow didn't understand how my mom didn't understand what was going on with me. So I felt that some of the blame was shifted to my mother, because of my own mistake. I know that she had nothing to do with it. I had everything to do with that, but that's how my father felt. And to me, it felt like a ton of heavy rocks, because sometimes I would overhear the arguments concerning my issue, and it was such a difficult time in my life, because here I am pregnant, I'm scared, I'm vulnerable, I'm confused, I'm disappointed. I've disappointed everyone in my family, the shame, the embarrassment, it was just a roller coaster of emotions, and it was very hard. That's what I can just say. It was very hard witnessing what went in my house. Well, my dad wasn't talking to me. He didn't talk to me. He never addressed me concerning the pregnancy. But somehow I was relieved that at least now he knows. So I gave birth. When I gave birth to a bouncing, beautiful, healthy boy, something miraculous happened in my family. I think the birth of a child is always a blessing. It was like my father's heart was melting away. The anger was disappearing. You know, we're now in talking terms. And from there on, they took complete responsibility for my baby, because I was still a baby myself. I was still a teenager. I had just come out of high school, and I was taken care of even at that time. So from there, I had to grow up quickly, very fast. You know, I had to grow up and become a woman. I had to take responsibility for my actions, so I thought. So I remember what was happening in my world, in my emotional world, was that I didn't have time to process anything, the trauma that came with just realizing and understanding that you are now pregnant. I did not have the time to process all of that. The Yeah, it was overwhelming for me, but I never took a moment. I never paused. Instead, I suppressed all of that pain, you know, all of it, all of that traumatic experience. It's like I pushed it under the rug and pretended that it never happened, you know. Part of me wanted to erase my past, but how can you erase your past like that? It's impossible. So what I quickly thought was that, okay, since now we are here, you need to grow up very quickly and fast. You need to overcompensate. Okay, what I felt was that I needed to somehow make up for my mistake. How I did that was that first I decided that I'm going to pursue my studies, get a career, go to university, graduate, and make a life out of that. So I engaged my parents on that. So they were like, it's okay, you can go to school, we'll take care of the child. But everything that I did from that point was overcompensating for what I carried as a shame, you know. Even when it came to choosing the career path that I wanted to do, because I've always been interested in anything to do with business, but I couldn't stand up for myself and say this is what I wanted to do, because I was afraid. My dad didn't really believe I could pursue a career in business. I think he never, in fact, I never verbalized it, how much of a passion it was to me for him to understand, because I was carrying that shame to say, now you have to watch what you say, your actions. You cannot afford to disappoint them again. So I took a career. When I took a career, I didn't. When I went when I went to college to find a place for what I could study, I didn't even know what to study. So when I heard my father speak of something along the lines of HR, so the first thing that I went there when I saw the career guidance person was that, can I do HR? Is there space in HR? They are like, unfortunately, it's filled up, but there's something similar to it. It's called public relations and communications. So I was like, okay, I'm in. I got into that. Fortunately, I loved it, you know, but that wasn't my path. I didn't want to take that path. I only took it because I was trying to erase my mistake, so I thought. So In terms of emotions, I never really processed any of my emotions.